all women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children, and God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus 8. Alcohol, the ancient catalyst of our species' rise and development. Written by Conrad Riker, available now. Links in description. Alcohol, a field guide for men who still notice reality. The state-sanctioned succubus. Dismantling the gynocentric matrix of female fraud, Marxist equity, and the consumerist castration of Western men. You have been lied to systemically, biologically, and cosmically. Look closely at the word virtue. It descends from the Latin virtus, translating literally to manliness or valor, derived from vir man. To the philosophical titans who built the colossal pillars of Western civilization, excellence was an inherently masculine pursuit, forged in the fires of duty, reason, and sacrifice. Today, you live in a hypergenocentric funhouse mirror where the state, academia, and the media have conspired to sever this linguistic root. They demand you castrate your own logos, your divine rational ordering principle, on the altar of equity and female emotional solipsism. They pathologize your biological imperative to build, protect, and provide as toxic, while celebrating the bare minimum of maternal instinct as sacred. I am here to tell you, with the absolute precision of a surgeon's scalpel, that the emperor is not only naked, she is clutching a clipboard, demanding you pay the tax for her own moral bankruptcy. Consider the cold, unyielding mathematics of the modern matriarchy, which we will ruthlessly dissect in these pages. Let us apply a simple, devastating syllogism to the family court system, that Kafkaesque nightmare where constitutional due process goes to die. Premise 1. A legal structure that categorically presumes male guilt, extracts resources via the threat of state violence, and immunizes female deceit is a mechanism of systemic theft. Premise 2. Western family courts operate on the explicitly feminist Duluth model, granting mothers primary custody in over 80% of contested cases, seizing male assets through punitive alimony, and legally ignoring the astonishing rates of paternity fraud, which traps up to 10% of men into financing the biological offspring of other men. Conclusion: the modern state functions not as an objective arbiter of justice, but as a heavily armed surrogate husband enforcing a massive, involuntary wealth transfer from masculine producers to deceitful feminine consumers. The tragic statistical irony is that men, who comprise the entirety of net lifetime taxpayers and over 3/4 of successful suicides, are violently extorted to fund the very bureaucratic leviathan designed to dismantle their families and destroy their souls. To keep you blind to this asymmetrical warfare, the satanic hydra of cultural Marxism distracts you with pathetic plastic baubles. You see them everywhere. The spiritually hollow men bragging about their leased supercars and overpriced velvet ropes. These men possess the outward aesthetics of success, but suffer the absolute internal poverty of vainglory. They are buying the superficial plumage of status to appease a hypergamous female gaze that views them not as kings but as walking, breathing ATM machines. Meanwhile, the academic priesthood of wokeism pushes critical race theory and indigenous epistemologies to dismantle the natural hierarchy of competence. They shriek that meritocracy is a myth because they are biologically and spiritually incapable of surviving the crucible of objective truth. To the fragmented, leftist mind, unequal outcomes are proof of a grand, invisible conspiracy. To the rational, natural law mind, unequal outcomes are the mathematical proof of a functioning, ordered reality where competence reigns supreme. It is time to violently reject the disease of work-life balance and reclaim the uncompromising, transcendent telos of your forefathers. When your schedule screams with chaos and the world demands your capitulation, you do not crumble like a modern therapy-addicted weakling seeking a pharmaceutical escape. You stand tall, impose your logos upon the chaos, and force the universe to bend to your will. In the following pages, we are going to systematically dismantle this modern Babylon. We will tear the mask off the state-sanctioned succubus of female financial fraud, obliterate the fraudulent temple of Marxist equity, and reconstruct the ironclad, sovereign boundaries of authentic masculinity. You are not a victim of the cosmos, you are its master. Strip off the gynocentric lie, shoulder the terrible burden of truth, and let us resurrect the West from the ashes of this pathetic feminized decay. The crucible of chaos, stress, logos, and the metal of true men. You have been sold a satanic euphemism, a pathetic piece of gynocentric poison known as work-life balance. The modern feminist state, operating through its human resources departments and therapy-addicted pop psychologists, demands that a man divide his loyalty, diluting his drive into a tepid puddle of mediocrity. If a man dedicates his life to a trivial equilibrium, he abandons his vocational calling to build, protect, and provision. Let us anchor ourselves in the grammar of reality. The word stress descends from the Latin stringiere, meaning to draw tight. What happens when you draw a string tight on a masterfully crafted bow? It does not break. It holds immense potential energy, capable of launching an arrow through the heart of a predator. What happens when you draw a string tight on a violin? It produces a perfect resonant pitch. To the feminized modern mind, tension is an oppressive evil to be medicated, therapized, and surrendered to. To the natural law mind, stress is the necessary friction of the universe. It is the cosmic forge. The universe does not reward balance. It rewards targeted, disproportionate sacrifice. This obsession with balance directly contradicts the biological reality of the androcentric mind. Men are neurologically wired for single-minded teleological focus, the hunter's trance. When the primal man tracked a mammoth across the frozen tundra, he did not stop to check his social media notifications or multitask by gathering berries. His entire neurobiology narrowed into a lethal, singular beam of intent. Today, feminist ideology champions multitasking as a superior female trait. This is empirically a cognitive impossibility, a lie forged in the fires of Marxist resentment. Neuroscience confirms that the human brain does not multitask. It micro-switches, fracturing attention and destroying deep work, degrading the prefrontal cortex's capacity for profound executive function. When a man reacts poorly to a chaotic, demanding schedule, it is almost always because he has been gaslit into abandoning his natural hierarchical linear focus to appease the chaotic, emotional demands of the feminine imperative. He is trying to speak a foreign tongue and his soul is gagging on the syntax. When you observe a man crushed by a demanding schedule, snapping at subordinates, whining to his wife, and dissipating his energy into the ether of emotional incontinence, you are witnessing the catastrophic failure of masculine integration. This is the pathology of emotional diffusion, the feminization of the male spirit. It is a surrender to the sensitive appetite over the rational intellect. The ancients had a precise term for this specific failure: effeminacy. It is the vice where the comfort of the moment is preferred over the duty of the hour. But the modern therapeutic state insists that a man overwhelmed by duty is a victim of systemic oppression requiring state-sponsored coddling. This is a catastrophic inversion of reality. By removing the sting of consequence, the state removes the catalyst for growth. The therapeutic model breeds acedia, the capital sin of spiritual apathy, the outright refusal to be. Struggle is not an offense to be litigated. It is the chisel of the divine sculptor. Let us deploy formal logic to dismantle this pathological lie. Consider the biological reality of the masculine spirit and the framework of natural law. Major premise: voluntary exposure to manageable hardship increases psychological resilience and competence. Minor premise: the modern, feminized workplace deliberately seeks to eliminate hardship, replacing objective metrics of competence with subjective metrics of emotional safety and inclusive equity. Conclusion: therefore, the modern workplace actively engineers weakness and discompetence in men, mistaking the privation of comfort for the presence of peace. The leftists frame safety as the highest good, but true peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the imposition of order upon chaos. When an organization prioritizes the fragile emotional states of its female and emasculated employees over the objective delivery of excellence, it commits civilizational suicide. To master the schedule, a man must ascend the apprenticeship ladder of his own soul. He must ruthlessly apply the cardinal virtue of prudence, right reason in action. He does not react to the chaos, he subjugates it. He structures his day with the exactitude a master architect uses to draft the geometric proportions of a cathedral. Every brick is laid with purpose, every hour is assigned its due weight. This requires the exercise of logos, the rational, ordering principle of the universe embedded within the masculine spirit. A man must look at his chaotic inbox, his demanding obligations, and his financial burdens and impose his will upon them. He does not cope with his schedule, he conquers it. He separates the essential from the accidental, refusing to grant emotional energy to the trivial earthquakes of daily life. He acts, and in his acting, he mirrors the divine creator who spoke the universe into existence from the void of nothingness. Picture the man who embodies this truth. Besieged by 100 screaming demands, his phone ringing off the hook, his subordinates panicking, he slows his breathing. He anchors his mind in the transcendent good, the true, and the beautiful, and executes the next right action with lethal precision. He does not brag about his exhaustion like a modern victim seeking validation on social media. He silently builds the world. This is the aesthetic of true masculine gravity. A busy schedule is not a burden. It is an initiation. It is the raw material of civilization. A man who cannot order his hours cannot order his mind, and a man who cannot order his mind cannot order his family or his polity. To crumble under the weight of legitimate duty is a failure of gravitas, that supreme masculine virtue of substantial, grounded presence that refuses to be knocked off its axis. Stand firm, impose your reason upon the chaos, and let the weak perish in their pursuit of balance while you build monuments in the fire. I have stood in the ruins of institutions that once commanded the respect of the world. Universities turned into daycares for perpetually offended toddlers. Corporations gutted by human resource departments staffed by the clinically useless. Government agencies where lived experience has replaced rigorous examination as the coin of the realm, and I am forced to confront a terrifying arithmetic. Every hour spent genuflecting before the flatulent idol of equity is an hour stolen from the pursuit of excellence. Every competence hierarchy flattened in the name of inclusion is a load-bearing wall removed from the architecture of civilization itself, and the crash, when it comes, will not discriminate. The meritocratic mirage, dismantling the epistemological fraud of Marxist equity. Consider the bridge you drive across on your daily commute. The steel arcs high above a fatal drop, bolted into bedrock by the sweat and calculated genius of men who spent decades mastering the unforgiving laws of physics. Now, imagine a shrieking, neon-haired diversity consultant pointing a trembling, resentful finger at that bridge, declaring it a patriarchal monument to oppression, because the rivets were not forged by a statistically representative quota of non-binary indigenous spirit guides. You laugh. But this exact ideological pathology is dismantling the very scaffolding holding our civilization aloft. We are watching the greatest culture in the known universe commit suicide by credential, trading the transcendent glory of competence for the flatulent, demoralizing cult of equity. To expose this enemy, we must ruthlessly fix the grammar. The word merit descends from the Latin merere, meaning to earn, to deserve, to labor for a wage. It is deeply rooted in the ancient natural law of proportionality. You reap precisely what you sow. Contrast this with equity. Originating from the Latin equus, meaning level or fair, it traditionally meant administering justice without the rigid blindness of codified statute, tempering the law with common sense. But the ideological mutate of cultural Marxism has performed a semantic hijacking of the term, twisting it into a materialist dogma that demands identical outcomes regardless of individual input, sacrifice, or talent. It is a linguistic fraud. The myth of meritocracy pushed by critical race theorists is itself a phantom, a rhetorical ghost conjured to justify the theft of masculine competence. The core dogma of this demonic religion relies on a fatal material fallacy, the assertion that all disparate outcomes between identity groups are solely the result of systemic oppression. Let us dissect this pathology with the surgical steel of formal logic. If unequal results automatically equal injustice, then the fact that men account for over 90% of workplace fatalities must mean society is inherently biased against men, sacrificing them to the more of the economy. If unequal representation in high-status fields is absolute proof of a conspiracy, then the absolute absence of women in the horrific, soul-crushing trades of sanitation, mining, and roofing proves the patriarchy is a lie. Disparity is not discrimination, it is the mathematical shadow cast by natural hierarchy, biological dimorphism, and the sheer, terrifying reality of individual agency. To state otherwise is to confess a total ignorance of mathematics and divine providence. Critical race theory is simply systematized envy, committing the fallacy of composition by attributing the historical sins of a few individuals to an entire ontological category. It explicitly rejects the foundational Western canon principle of individual moral agency. By the dictates of natural law, you cannot inherit the guilt of a historical crime without also inheriting the merit of historical achievements. Yet the Marxist explicitly denies the latter while weaponizing the former. It is a logical parasite. If I am to be morally damned for the actions of strangers who died centuries ago simply because we share a skin tone, then by that exact same logic, the modern beneficiary of billions in foreign aid and domestic welfare must bear the guilt of their ancestors' failure to invent the wheel or draft a constitution. They want collective guilt for you, but strict, isolated individualism for themselves. It is the logic of a spoiled child demanding a larger slice of a pie he did not hunt, butcher, or bake. This epistemological rot festers most visibly in the modern university, a conquered province of the woke hydra, where alternative epistemologies are now preached as gospel. This is an oxymoron of breathtaking stupidity. Epistemology is the philosophical study of how we know what is objectively real. It is the domain of logos, the rational ordering principle of the universe. To claim a separate, racially determined way of knowing is to reintroduce primitive superstition, magic, and witch doctoring through the back door of academia. It is the total abandonment of the trivium. Subjective emotion is masquerading as objective truth. When a leftist says lived experience trumps empirical data, they are demanding you abandon your rational soul to worship the fleeting, hysterical passions of the mob. They demand this because their core tenets are completely unfalsifiable. If a demographic fails to achieve parity in a given field, say software engineering, the invisible, unquantifiable specter of systemic racism, or the patriarchy is immediately blamed, it cannot be measured. It cannot be seen. It cannot be logically disproven. If you point a thermometer at a freezing room to prove there is no fire, the Marxist simply claims the fire is invisible, and only they can feel its heat. It is a religious dogma without a transcendent God, a cult demanding human sacrifices, specifically the sacrifice of competent, hard-working men to appease the insatiable demon of inequality. Why is the modern genocracy so obsessed with this macabre equity? Because female evolutionary biology fundamentally operates on resource extraction and provision. Look at the cold, hard data of family court, where fathers are stripped of their children and reduced to ambulatory ATMs in over 80% of contested cases. Look at the abortion rate, where the biological imperative to secure resources from the state completely overrides the sacred duty of motherhood, allowing a woman to unilaterally murder a man's heir without his consent. The feminist state acts as a surrogate husband, using equity as a legal mechanism to forcibly redistribute the resources generated by masculine competence into the hands of those who did not earn it. It is statutory fraud on a civilizational scale. Hierarchy is not a social construct. It is a pre-political biological reality written into the fabric of nature by the divine architect. Logos dictates that the man who spends 10,000 hours mastering the forging of steel is functionally superior to the man who spends 10,000 hours complaining about microaggressions on the internet. Competence is the natural right to authority. We must aggressively reject the leftist framing of privilege. Competence is not a privilege, it is a hard-won conquest over nature, bought with blood, stress, and voluntary sacrifice. Men must sever the infected limb and build anew. We must form new civil society associations, completely divorced from the corrupted gynocentric state. We must re-enshrine the apprenticeship mastery ladder, build parallel economies based solely on merit, where the truth is spoken and the unskilled are taught, not coddled. True justice is the cardinal virtue of rendering to each man his proportional due. It is not a flattening, egalitarian destruction of distinction, but the sharp, undeniable scalpel of truth. A civilization thrives only when the navigator, the surgeon, and the architect are selected by their mastery, not by their melanin or their adherence to pathological gender theories. Reclaim your agency, master your trade, and let the woke Babylon crumble under the weight of its own lies while we build a fortress of truth in the wasteland. When I behold the catastrophic ruins wrought by this Marxist dogma of equity, I see that the institutional theft of competence does far more than bankrupt the state. It utterly eviscerates the male soul. Having been gaslit by the genocracy into abandoning their natural blood-soaked descent toward true mastery, men are now conditioned to pursue the mere illusion of status to appease the hypergamous gaze. They have swallowed the demonic lie that masculine greatness is an accident to be purchased on credit, rather than a substance forged in the agonizing fires of voluntary sacrifice. This pathetic refusal to bear the objective weight of reality breeds a grotesque inversion of true manhood. I witness the disastrous, feminized end product of this ideological sorcery every weekend night. The vainglory of the velvet rope, consumerism, cosmological emptiness, and true masculine wealth. There he stands, a 30-year-old boy in a $4,000 designer jacket, desperately pleading with a bouncer for entry into a dilapidated warehouse playing atonal synthesized noise. He points to his leased European sports car, flashes his oversized gem-encrusted watch, and begs for the velvet rope to be pulled back. I watch this pathetic spectacle and see the absolute ruin of the masculine spirit. We must begin with the strict correction of our definitions, as the corruption of language always precedes the collapse of a civilization. Let us define our terms. Vainglory is etymologically derived from the Latin vanus, meaning empty or void, and gloria, meaning praise or renown. It is the capital vice of demanding applause for an excellence one does not actually possess. In classical philosophy, substance is what a thing fundamentally is, while accidents are the non-essential properties that merely adhere to it. Your soul, your intellect, and your moral character are your substance, your bank account, your Italian loafers, and your luxury vehicle are your accidents. The modern braggart has violently inverted this cosmic order. He is a substanceless void, a hollow shell thinly painted with corporate logos, attempting to mask his terrifying internal emptiness with the accidental baubles of a degenerate consumer economy. Make no mistake, this grotesque obsession with high-end consumption is intrinsically, irredeemably feminine. For 60 years, the insidious virus of cultural Marxism and toxic feminism has infected the Western mind, successfully conditioning men to measure their worth by how effectively they can mimic female hypergamous consumption. In the natural world, among the lower orders of avians, it is the female who is drab and utilitarian, while the male must sport extravagant, colorful plumage to attract a mate. But man is not a bird, he is a higher mammal endowed with reason, built for civilization. In the human order, the masculine archetype does not display ornamental plumage. He displays his capacity to provision, protect, and produce objective value. When a man obsesses over a luxury watch or boasts of his VIP table at a nightclub, he is not displaying virility. He is biologically regressing to a primitive avian state. He is fundamentally announcing to the world that his genetics are so deficient, his character so weak, that he must purchase a brightly colored proxy for his own absent manhood. He has become a peacock, strutting and squawking for a harem that secretly despises his fundamental weakness. The dark irony is that these preening consumers are entirely blind to the economic reality of the civilization they parasitize. The data-driven, empirical truth is undeniable. Men are the only net lifetime taxpayers. The entire scaffolding of the modern welfare state, the bloated government bureaucracy, and the entitlement programs that disproportionately fund the feminist gynocracy are entirely subsidized by the sweat, ingenuity, and taxation of men. Men build the bridges, mine the ore, engineer the microchips, and fight the wars. We are the net producers of human flourishing. The man who brags about his extravagant consumption is a parasite on this grand, historic, masculine tradition. He takes the massive surplus capital generated by the sacrifices of his forefathers and burns it on transient, superficial nonsense. He extracts the fruits of civilization without adding a single seed to its soil. This is the ultimate betrayal of the masculine duty of provision, reducing the noble calling of the builder to the pathetic habits of a buyer. Let us dissect this pathology using the strict, unyielding scalpel of formal logic. We will construct a syllogism to expose the uninitiated consumer. Major premise: true masculine identity is forged exclusively through the sacrifice of overcoming ordeal and the production of objective value. Minor premise: consumerism requires zero sacrifice or production, only the spending of unearned or unmerited capital. Conclusion: therefore, the consumerist male, bragging of his luxury goods, possesses no authentic masculine identity. He is attempting to purchase the aura of a king without having undergone the agonizing, bloody initiation of the warrior. The rhetorical failure of the braggart proves this logically. He entirely abandons logos, the rational structure of reality, relying instead on pathetic appeals to the envy of other equally hollow men. Consider his implicit enthymeme: I own expensive things, therefore I am valuable. The hidden, unstated premise here is that material wealth equals human worth. This hidden premise is a vicious, damnable Marxist lie, deliberately designed to reduce the infinite dignity of the human person to a mere manipulable economic unit. The modern Babylon of woke, materialist culture worships the shiny, the fleeting, and the artificial, which is the absolute antithesis of the transcendental beautiful. True masculine beauty is architectural and structural. It is the enduring symmetry of a disciplined life, the unshakable strength of a man who has built something that will outlast his own heartbeat. A Rolex watch does not build civilization. It merely ticks away the seconds while civilization decays into chaos. To break the spell of this monumental ignorance, a man must ruthlessly sever his self-worth from his net worth. You must stop seeking the validation of a gynocentric system that actively hates you. Embrace the classical virtue of magnanimity, the greatness of soul that claims its due excellence, but fiercely refuses all false smallness and superficiality. The magnanimous man is utterly indifferent to the price of his garments. He is focused entirely on the weight of his word, the sharpness of his mind, and the strength of his arm. He requires no velvet rope, no bouncer, and no applause for his greatness, because his conscience is his ultimate judge. Let your actions be your argument. Let your competence be your resume, and let the pathetic, superficial world crumble around your silent, immovable resolve. You might think, having stripped away the costume jewelry of modern materialism, that you and I are now free to build in peace. I have told you to embrace silent competence, to reject the feminized metrics of consumption, to let your work speak while the estates shriek themselves hoarse. But I would be a liar and a coward if I left you with that comfort alone. I must warn you of the brutal reality that no politician, no judge, no blue pill father, and undeniably no woman will ever speak aloud. The moment you produce something of real value, you become prey. The gynocentric state does not merely want you to consume, it wants to consume you. and the primary weapon it deploys to devour masculine labor is not taxation, not regulation, not even the cultural rot we have already dissected. It is something far more primitive, far more insidious, and older than any bureaucracy. It is state-sanctioned, legally weaponized female fraud. To understand how thoroughly this corruption has metastasized through every institution built by our fathers, we must first drag two ancient words into the light and examine what has been done to them. The state-sanctioned succubus, gynocentrism, legal asymmetry, and the protection of female fraud. Let us begin with a radical revolutionary act in this intellectually starved age. Looking at a dictionary, consider the word fraud. It descends to us from the Latin fraus, meaning deceit, injury, a deliberate breach of trust. Now hold that ancient heavy word next to justice, derived from jus, which the great jurists of Western civilization defined as the constant and perpetual will to render to each his due. For centuries, the bedrock of our civilization balanced these two concepts on the sharp edge of objective law. Today, the feminist state has taken these definitions, marched them into a back alley, and shot them in the head. We no longer live under the rule of law. We live under the rule of the uterus. The state has manufactured a legally immune protected class of deceivers, granting women near total immunity for their intrinsic bad faith, so long as the deceiver wears a skirt and sheds a tear. Witness the sheer hilarious dishonesty of the modern financial abuse framework, a pathetic demon spawned directly from the Marxist swamps of the Duluth model. If a man prudently restricts his wife's out-of-control spending, a feminist therapist will diagnose him as a financial abuser. He is a tyrant restricting her autonomy. Yet, if that same woman secretly drains the retirement account, maxes out the credit cards to fund her vanity, and hides the impending bankruptcy from her husband, the state looks at the bleeding, ruined man and declares it a civil matter. This is a catastrophic logical fallacy of equivocation. Identical actions, the restriction or extraction of financial resources, are judged diametrically opposite, based solely on the genitalia of the actor. It is not justice. It is a state-sponsored protection racket for female profligacy. You want to see the true face of modern tyranny? Walk into a family court. The family court system in the West is an irreparably corrupt institution, entirely captured by the demons of Marxism and feminism. It does not operate on a presumption of innocence or the dialectic pursuit of truth. It operates on a bedrock presumption of male guilt and perpetual female victimhood. It is a kangaroo court designed explicitly to enforce the wealth transfer from competent, industrious men to deceitful, vindictive women. When a judge rubber stamps an ex parte restraining order based on a woman's hysterical, uncorroborated claims and zero empirical evidence, the state is actively destroying the nuclear family. It is dismantling the very bedrock of civilization to feed the insatiable maw of the gynocentric matrix. We must courageously and directly refute the biological pathology driving this extortion, female solipsism. Women are empirically more prone to emotional reasoning, a psychological state that inherently disconnects the mind from objective reality. When a woman commits financial fraud against a man, whether it is hiding debt, stealing from the business, or trapping him into paying for another man's child, she does not experience the sharp, convicting guilt of theft. No, she experiences the emotional justification of deserving it. Her feelings dictate her reality. If she feels entitled to your wealth, then taking it is, in her solipsistic framework, an act of cosmic justice. This is a complete, terrifying inversion of the virtue of justice. It is a psychological mutation where pathos attempts to murder logos. According to the classical philosophy of natural law that built our civilization, a man's labor is an extension of his very self. Your property is not merely paper numbers on a bank screen or bricks on a foundation. Your property is your time, your energy, your sacrificed sweat, and your foregone leisure. It is your logos materialized in the physical world. To steal a man's property through female fraud, and to have the cowardly state refuse to prosecute it, is not just a financial crime, it is ontological violence. It is the state participating in the destruction of a man's physical incarnation in the world. When a woman steals your labor, she is literally stealing the hours of your one and only life, hours you will never ever get back. Do not fool yourself into thinking this is a flaw in the system. The refusal of the state to prosecute female financial deception, whether through fraudulent paternity claims, the wasteful misuse of marital assets, or outright grand theft, is not a bug of the feminist matrix. It is its central defining feature. When a woman steals a man's wealth, she is simply acting as the vanguard of the state. The state views her as a proxy tax collector, a loyal commissar redistributing masculine capital into the hands of the feminine collective. Look at the paternity fraud rates, where men are legally forced to continue paying for children proven by DNA not to be theirs, simply because the court prioritizes the mother's comfort over the objective truth of the father's blood. The state sanctions the lie because the lie serves the state. How do we defeat this systemic evil? You must weaponize your prudence. You must burn down the childish, blue-pilled fantasy that women are inherently angelic creatures made of sugar and spice. Trust is not an entitlement granted by a vagina. It is an earned, heavily tested, and rigorously audited commodity. You must never commingle your logos with a woman's pathos without securing the perimeter. You must master the legal, financial, and psychological tools necessary to shield your life's work from the state's most powerful weapon. The legally immune, deceitful woman, hide your assets. Use irrevocable trusts. Keep your mouth shut about your wealth. Treat your financial life with the operational security of a wartime intelligence officer, because you are in fact at war. Men must wake up from the spell of romantic ignorance and recognize the predators among them. The ultimate remedy is a full-scale retreat from the state's influence and a return to the ancient political principle of subsidiarity, handling issues at the most local, decentralized level possible. We must stop expecting a feminist government to protect our rights. We must build our own parallel institutions, our own fraternal associations, our own apprenticeship mastery ladders, and our own legal shields to protect our wealth from the gynocentric matrix. We must create a civilization within the civilization, walled off by the iron gates of competence, fraternal loyalty, and unyielding truth. Let the logic be undeniably inescapable, a flawless syllogism that crushes the leftist narrative beneath its heel. Major premise: the primary biological and historical driver of female hypergamy is the extraction of resources and provision from men. Minor premise: the modern state has systematically eliminated the natural consequences and social policing of this hypergamy, codifying it into law. Conclusion: therefore, the modern state is a gynocentric machine designed to facilitate and legally enforce female financial deception against men. The premise is a biological fact, the minor premise is an observable legal reality, and the conclusion is mathematically inescapable. Face the truth, gentlemen. Arm yourselves with the classical virtues, master the trivium, and refuse to be sacrificial lambs on the altar of the state-sanctioned succubus. You have just walked through the fire of reality, and you have survived. I did not sugarcoat the statistical realities because you do not need a therapeutic hug. You required the cold structural steel of logos thrust into the spinning gears of the feminist matrix. You now possess the historical and biological data proving that the modern gynocracy is a legally enforced fraud. You know, the devastating, empirically validated truth. You know that non-paternity events cuckold millions of men into raising the offspring of other men, while the state aggressively prosecutes a father for missing a child support payment for a child that is not even his. You know the grim mortality statistics showing that male suicides make up the vast majority of demographic self-destruction, driven to the void by a family court system that treats their labor as a state-owned resource and their natural right to their children as a criminal offense. You understand that millions of unborn lives are extinguished annually to serve as a retroactive birth control method for the consequences of unchecked female hypergamy, celebrated as a human right by the same demonic ideological machine that calls your natural masculinity a poison. You have seen the hidden architecture of the world, and you can never unsee it. Look at what we have just dismantled together. We dragged the Marxist fiction of equity into the blinding light of formal logic and watched it burn. You now understand that a system demanding identical outcomes regardless of individual competence is not a cry for justice, but a thinly veiled, systematic theft of masculine excellence. We stripped the glossy veneer off the modern luxury market and exposed it as the pathetic peacocking of the uninitiated, a hollow substitute for actual mastery. We dragged the contemporary obsession with work-life balance into the square of opposition and proved it is a eunuch's fantasy, a linguistic trap designed to medicate the masculine drive to build, conquer, and order chaos. We proved, with relentless, undeniable deduction, that a legal system refusing to prosecute female financial deception is not a flaw of the state. It is the state functioning exactly as intended, as a giant parasitic mechanism, transferring the capital of competent men to the collective feminine. You are now completely immune to the gaslighting. When a female coworker breaks down in tears over a stressful schedule, you no longer see a crisis requiring your masculine intervention. You see the biological failure of emotional regulation and the catastrophic absurdity of elevating sentiment over reason. When you see a man driving a leased supercar to impress a woman with a trail of emotional wreckage longer than a CVS receipt, you no longer feel envy. You recognize the tragic regression of a male who has been conned into buying his own castration. You have separated the objective reality of physical harm from the manipulative, feminine fabrication of emotional offense. You have broken the spell of collective guilt and reclaimed the absolute supremacy of your own individual agency. This is your ultimate reward. You are awake and you are armed with the living spirit of Western civilization. You are no longer a pawn in the satanic game of cultural Marxism, nor a willing host for the vampiric appetites of a degenerate modern Babylon. You have remembered that men are the sole net taxpayers, the architects of reality, and the immortal bearers of the transcendent true, good, and beautiful. Stand up, dust off the pathetic ideological lies of the leftist gynocracy, and re-enter the world as a master builder. Speak this truth with devastating, diagnostic precision to anyone who will listen. Go forth, forge unbreakable alliances with other awakened men, build impregnable parallel institutions, and let the lying parasites of the modern world weep at the gates of your absolute unyielding sovereignty. And now the sponsored book, Introduction Alcohol, the ancient catalyst of our species' rise and development. I was 12 when I stole my first drink from my father's whiskey cabinet. The burn down my throat wasn't just rebellion, it was initiation. That same cabinet held bottles my grandfather brought back from Okinawa, each sip a battle cry against the softness creeping into our world. Today, that cabinet's a relic. We live in an era where men apologize for ordering bourbon neat and feminists lecture us about healthy coping mechanisms. Bullshit. This book is my counterpunch. Alcohol built men. It built empires. And if you're tired of being gaslit into believing your natural instincts are toxic, you'll understand why that matters. I've spent 2 decades researching brewing pits in Neolithic villages, Viking mead halls, and the hidden ledgers of Prohibition-era bootleggers. The pattern's undeniable. Every time societies demonize alcohol, they neuter men. The beer before bread theory isn't some drunkard's fantasy, it's etched into our DNA. Our ancestors didn't domesticate grains for sandwiches, they wanted beer. And that beer fueled the cooperation, aggression, and audacity required to conquer continents. This book isn't for everyone. If you think toxic masculinity is a real term or believe sobriety apps will save your soul, put it down. Go knit a sweater. But if you're a man who's felt the gynocratic leash-tightening career stripped of meaning, masculinity pathologized, historic truths buried under rainbow flags, this is your antidote. You'll learn how Egyptian pyramid builders drank 4 liters of beer daily to erect wonders modern unions would call oppressive. You'll discover why Hemingway's Daiquiri Dawn writing sessions produced masterpieces, while today's soy-sipping bloggers generate clickbait. You'll see how the temperance movement wasn't about morality, it was about control. A dry run for the woke puritanism suffocating us now. I won't coddle you with platitudes about moderation. Nature doesn't moderate. Lions don't sip gazelle blood responsibly. The same Darwinian logic applies to men who drink. Alcohol sharpened our competitive edge, lubricated alliances, and yes, attracted women. A Tinder profile with whiskey gets 200% more matches because biology doesn't care about feminist hashtags. To the men still standing, this is your field manual. We'll dissect the science proving your liver evolved to outdrink weaker tribes. We'll resurrect the rituals that forged brotherhoods, from Shinto sake ceremonies to Texas oilmen's whiskey handshakes. And when the collapse comes, you'll know how to brew potato vodka for fuel, trade, and reminding your enemies why alcohol made us apex predators. The war's here. They're coming for your beer, your bars, your legacy. Fight back with the one weapon they can't confiscate, the truth. Drink it straight. No woke dilution. Conrad Riker. Alcohol, the ancient catalyst of our species' rise and development, written by Conrad Riker. By now, links in description.